G'day everyone. It's been maybe a week or two since I've done the last tutorial, and the last one I can't exactly remember. It may have been the triceps or the trapezius muscles. Either way, we're moving on, and we've started with the head, we're going down the body. I know we've done the biceps and triceps, and we are going to start on the scapular muscles, which you can see on the screen now. I've also put some nice proportional guide that might be useful to you if you're wondering how far down the scapula uh, sits on the upright body. Um, and I'll quickly draw that in now, just next to this one for reference. Um, so if you've got your, let's see what I've got. Okay, a red pen. So say your head is the size of a circle as we got here, and you can see it at the front here. Um, there. We go down another head size, and you can see on the back, scapula, roughly the base of the scapula, roughly sits at the bottom of this second head. So we've got head number one, head number two, and it's just sitting on the outside of that head number two. And we can see that it also, the top shelf of the scapula rides about midway through that second head size. So that's just a quick reference for if you are not sure where to put your scapula. Uh, and what we'll do now is we'll look at the actual. I've got this as reference for me because there's quite a few muscles there. Um, Not every single muscle is visible when you look from at let's say an artwork of the back or a drawing, but it's good just to know what's underlying there in case, say, someone's really flexing there and you need to figure out what the muscle is. It'd be handy, like what we've done over all the tutorials, just to know what's underlying and what these undulations that you see on the skin represent. So now what I've got here a right scapula, so I'll just continue off what I've got on the left there, just the overall figure of the scapula, and just about a third of the way down, you've got a shelf, and that connects. That is part of the acromion process that hangs over the front and connects with the clavicle at the front. Okay, you guys should know what the clavicle is by now. It's the collarbone at the front. Um, and if I was to look at this sort of from side on, this shelf can confuse people. So if I look at it from the side here, this is the acromion process, and we've got this kind of thing happening. I'm not representing it too well, I don't think, but this is where the humerus, the head of the humerus would sit in that socket there, and the shelf be that acromion process be above that head and connect to the clavicle. Let me try and make this a bit more something you can understand a bit better. I'll get rid of this for now, and I'll put up this image. So I'll add another layer. So I'm just going to draw the bone. So we've got the head down to the chin, and say we going off of that those proportions before, about a head down, we've got the other we've got the base of the scapula. And where is it? You can see this shadow is showing us the edge of the scapula. We've got a little bump up here, which would be the acromion process that connects to the clavicle. So this is how I imagine this scapula would be sitting on this figure. We've got the spine coming down, and we see this scapula here, the other side. It's covered by the trapezius, and we wouldn't see too much of it because of the orientation of that one. Okay, but I think I'm getting ahead of myself and could be confusing you guys. So let's get back to that other image we have. Okay, I'll erase this and I'll backtrack a bit. We'll go back to where does this go? Let me increase the size of this. Oh, I'll just wrap it all out. Let's focus on the simple first, which is just having a look at the scapula who was just facing us. Sorry, we're facing it from the back, okay? And where do the muscles lay? So remember that this shelf and under here, this is that. What I might do is pause and get a decent looking this bone, like an image of the scapula that we can reference from. So just a moment here, I'll put a pause on this. And I'm back with some good references of the actual, like some decent illustrations of the bones of the scapula. Well, just the bone of the scapula. Over here where I'm hovering this cursor is the large view of what we'd mainly see from the back if there was no flesh and muscle. Here is that shelf I'm talking about. And then here is where a muscle called the supraspinatus would be sitting on. That shelf, see the end of that? That would be, I believe, the acromion process. And you can see it on this smaller illustration. It's got the shelf and it breaks out into that big acromion process. From the side here, you can see where my cursor's circling is that shelf. And this is the acromion process. And I believe that's where the clavicle would connect. And you can see the tip here. So I'm just circling where the tip would be. This little little part there that's where I'm circling now, that'd be I think the glenoid process, and that's where your muscle, the bicep brachii, would be connecting and going over the head of the humerus, making up that those bicep muscles. And this flat bit, that would be the sort of area where the head of the humerus. Let me see if I can draw on that. No, I can't. And put it above here. Yeah, okay, so that's where the humerus would be sitting under. So I'd erase this small bit. It'll be hidden by that. Okay, so again, the head of the humerus, bone going down, And this is from, say you looked at the scapula from, you're looking at the front of the person. This is the guy's person's rib cage, and you can see through them the clavicle connecting up here and going through like that, and then the head of the humerus. This would be where, let me use another color. That glenoid process, I think it's called, with its tendons making up the biceps. Okay, hopefully that mess makes sense. Now let's go back. I keep on going back, and let's finally get onto the muscles. Okay. Nope. Let me get rid of these proportions altogether. And we start here fresh again. Okay, so I'm going to put in the bone there. And I'll put that. So you can start with a simple triangle. And you don't really have to put this shelf. But for now, let's add it. Okay. And I'll put the humerus bone. Save a bit of the elbow, the olecranon. Okay. Now, people don't usually add this. I will, just so you know. Come on. This is a supraspinatus, okay? And it sits above that shelf. Goes through, and it sits on the head of the humerus. Okay. So that's the supraspinatus. Next up is a big, sort of covers the whole of the scapula, the infraspinatus. So you got the supra and infra. Okay. And that sits on top of the head of the humerus also. There's also another muscle, the teres minor, which people don't. Oh, let me type that in. Infraspinatus. The teres minor, I was saying, sits around here, and it connects to the head of the humerus also. People don't tend to draw that one. And remember, this is only extra knowledge for you guys. But an important one is the teres minor. I'll do it in a bit of a different color so you can distinguish it. And that sits around the bottom of the scapula, and it goes to the front of the humerus bone, okay? So see how you've got a bunch connecting to the head of the humerus. You've got the teres minor going to the front. It's sort of going in there and wrapping to the front. What else is important? Okay, so I'll do another color to represent our triceps. See if that comes up. So remember, you've got the tricep muscles. This is the medial head. You've got the lateral head. And then this long head, it connects. Now you've got the front of this side of the scapula, and on the other side of the scapula, this is where the long head connects. So it's under all those, but it goes over that teres minor. Okay. So it'll take some practice to get used to these, where these muscles lie. Okay, now that's two more important parts. Okay, remember we had our deltoids and our trapezius. We've already learnt about them. I'll add them now also. This pink I've got here, see whether I've got my cursor hovering, that connects to that shelf, and that is our trapezius. Remember? And at the bottom of the shelf is where our deltoid, you've got some ligaments, and then the deltoid will be going around to the front. Okay? And that covers all of that mess. I shouldn't say mess, but all those muscles. Okay? And you've got the side delt as well, that you probably see a little bit of. I'm exaggerating that bump. And that's what you've got. I've got to put teres minor. Oh, major. Well, I might have called it teres minor before. Teres minor. Infraspinatus, supraspinatus, trapezius, deltoids. Okay? And that's pretty much, you could end the lesson right there. But we'll kick on and look at some examples. This is our beloved Michelangelo. I'll draw on top of that. Well, I'll draw next to it. And this is the exercises that I'd like you to do frequently after these lessons. Look for a reference. Best to study from old masters, or even Russian Academy figure drawings, which are really good to study from. Okay, now let's just go through this whole figure with a gesture. Okay, the rib cage. I'll just mention where I'm going through the chin, the neck, sorry. And always remember, I say this all the time, you're just using it as a reference. You're not getting things exactly as you see it. You need to understand that it's a lot better to just use figures as reference guides and not to just blatantly copy like a machine. You want to use your brain as well. Okay, the scapula. See how I've got it? I'll put this one kind of straightish. But you see how this one's angled that way? And it's because this person's shoulder or arm is going up. So if the arm was down and resting, the scapula would be like that. But since it's got a hinge point here, and I should really be putting the hinge there, okay? And from this hinge, this would be where the scapula would kind of move about from, okay? With the arms going up to the side, things like that. So just be aware of that. This other arm, if it was flowing like this, then it'd be angled and a bit more like that. And remember that if you've got a rib cage shaped like an egg, and you do this on another layer, the egg shape of the rib cage, the scapula isn't just flat like that. It it sort of wraps around that rib cage, like wrapping like this. It's not just a flat bone. Like sort of like the shape I'm doing with my hands, it cups around and hugs that rib cage, okay? So you've got to be aware of that, because when you move your shoulder forward, then this sort of moves around too, to the shape of the rib cage. Okay? So it'll be moving around the contour of the shape of the rib cage, like I said. Let's go back to what we were doing. Okay, I'll use another. Okay, I'll add the. Sorry, just cleaning up some layers. So if I've got the chromium process connecting to that shelf, you can see the base of that scapula. Now, I'll imagine that the humerus head is there. I can see the bone of the olecranon, and I'm going to add the humerus bone like so. Okay, and that would go, the outside would be the radius. We haven't gone on to that yet, but we will. Elbow goes to the ulna. And that's for future episodes. I'll just put an angle for these eyes. Okay, so let's say we add on the trapezius. Okay, you can really see that C7 joint. And okay, now another color. Supraspinatus sits above that shelf, goes through and connects to the head of the humerus. Infraspinatus covers a lot of that shoulder blade. Teres minor connecting to the head of the humerus also. And remember our teres major connecting, goes under the humerus there and to the front of that bone, of the humerus bone. Okay. Now the triceps. Let's try another color. Hope you're following along with me. So medial head, lateral outside head. And I'm not even looking at the reference. I'm just sort of connecting the dots, so to speak. And then we'll compare it after how well I did or not. And remember this long head of the humerus connecting to the inside of the scapular bone. Okay, I think from the notes, what have, oops. Yeah, it goes under deltoid. So what I get confused often with is where this trapezius lies. So it's going over the teres major and under the scapula. I've got to. Okay, so under the teres major. So I should erase what I had there. Hang on, what did I say? Over the teres major, under the scapula. So over that teres major, that's correct, and under the scapula. And these other, like the teres minor and infraspinatus muscles, if they were extended out. You're getting confused. I'm sorry. And we'll go through another example. Okay, let's try one more. Here's a nice one. I didn't check how correctly I did that last one, but I can see that the tricep is a bit thicker over here. And we've got our trapezius, pretty correct. You can't see too many muscles because you can feel that the figure is stretching the muscles, so it's not really flexing them. Okay, it is flexing the deltoid, which we haven't added. I'll put that in a black color. So along here, the bottom shelf is where we put our delt. And then you've got the side delt. So you can see that here, where the cursor is, this area, and a bit of that front delt. Okay. One more. Now, this is another one where the figure is kind of stretching the scapula because you can feel it. He's sort of hunched over, got his arms hugging something towards the front, or just it's making that motion. And like what we were saying before, with the egg shape, those scapulas would be following the roundness, cupping that rib cage. Okay, let me just start here like this. Head, neck, arms going out. I'm not going to really draw so many bones this time. I'll just draw the general, like I'll make some geometric shapes, cylinders, make it up from cylinders and box shapes. You could find a box shape here. Anyway, I'm digressing. Say a C7 here. I could see through, drawing the contour like this, just to get a feel for these cylinders. And it's a good idea to practice this. So don't focus so much on anatomy and just build your figure from cylinders and then draw these like contour shapes to show the volume. Okay, a good exercise. Okay, now scapula. I can see a divot here, and that's like a sign for me. I'd say maybe that's where the chromium process would be, connecting to that shelf. The edge of the scapula like that, and then you've got maybe a socket where the humerus would be sitting inside. It would be nestled in there. And then you've got this divot here. And you wouldn't see too much of the scapula there. Well, you get much more real estate here than you would on this angle, okay? And also good habit to try and get these things to sort of get into the habit of making rhythms of things. So even if it doesn't look like that on the actual figure, it's good composition and, well, it's good. I don't know. It's like um a rhythm for your eyes to view, and it's a bit more pleasing than having one say like that and then one going like this. It seems disjointed, whereas this seems a bit more unified. Okay, so I'll add another color just to get our muscles in. Okay, supraspinatus. Again, I'm not going to reference too much from the figure. Infraspinatus sitting on the roughly, I'm guessing roughly where the head is, and this teres minor, and it's really stretched out. Teres major will be going to the front of that bone. Again, the triceps, long head, over teres major and under the front of the scapula. Long head, medial head, and then trapezius. And it's pretty much, well, connects to the elbow there. You can see a contour there of the tricep. Now let's add the deltoid, the rear delt, which covers all of that. And it'll be going towards the front side of the humerus. Side delt, and it's really pronounced here on this figure. Trapezius connecting to that top shelf. And I'm exaggerating that because he's squashed there and a bit more stretched on this side. Trapezius connecting. You can see it here. This contour here. On the figure, you see the base of that scapular bone, and that would be a latissimus, which we'll learn later on. I'll introduce it shortly here. This side, you don't get much. You might get a bit of the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and everything else is really stretched out. And you can see the trapezius down there. Okay. Now the lats. Let me see the origin of the lats. I think where it connects. Okay, it's saying that, just doing some quick research. I'll do a proper video on it, but it seems to be connecting to the front of the humerus, and it goes under, covers. So you wouldn't see this line. It's going. I drew this line because it will be going over the base of the scapula, under all that muscle, and touching the front of the humerus bone. It then meets around there and then continues its journey to the front, under, and then where it meets at the bottom, I think it's on the sacrum, I'm pretty sure. So if you've got the hip bones and in between is the sacrum, it'll be connecting down towards the sacrum and these hip bones. But we'll go through it in another lesson. That's just a teaser for a future lesson. Okay, so hopefully you understood a bit there. I thought it would be a lot simpler, but it is a bit complex. It appears not so complex when you're looking at the figure. There are quite a few muscles that make up the muscles of the scapula. The confusing part is not only memorizing them, but for me is the layering from the triceps going over the teres major and under all the other muscles to the front of the scapula. The first section of the video I had sort of color coded where the trapezius connects and the delts. So also be aware of those muscles. In all honesty, you probably only have to know about the infraspinatus and the teres major. The other muscles sort of get covered by the trapezius and the delts. And also, it's important, maybe try start adding the lats just to get used to the lessons we have in the future. But hopefully, again, you've understood the lesson here, and hopefully, well, if you've got any questions or suggestions, again, feel free to give me some criticisms on what I can improve on. I know someone gave me a tip on getting this cursor to be a bit bigger so they can see, but this is as big as I could get it. If anyone knows I can do an even bigger cursor in flip art, I'm always open to whatever you suggest. So with that, keep on drawing and enjoy. That's the most important part. See you next time.